Hello everyone, my name is Bethany and this is my channel Bethany's Thoughts. Today I am going to be doing my November wrap-up. It was an okay month. The month didn't start very strong, but the end of the month ended up being really good. So I'm happy for that to be the case. Also, can I just point out that my husband made me extra shelf space and now I can actually have some more of my books behind me while I'm filming. I'm very excited about it. Also, get yourself a partner that makes you room bookshelf for your books because they're the best. Let's go into wrapping up November. To start off with, the first book I read for November, which was, I read right between the end of October and November. We're counting it for November. It is A Man Called OOV by Frederick Bachman. I read it as an audio. This was about OOV. I listened to the audio, so I'm trying to make sure that I pronounced it right. It's spelled O-V-E, but it's pronounced OOV, I think. OOV is just this very grumpy old man, and what I really liked about it was the storytelling. The storytelling slowly unfolds, and OOV is just, you're just following OOV around, and he's like really cantankerous and really horrible. And then as the story goes on, it slowly unveils like what's happening and why OOV is the way he is. I just like that kind of storytelling. I find it very compelling, and you are able to sympathize with OOV. It starts really slow, and then it felt like it really ended abruptly. You didn't really get OOV to be the wonderful person that you knew him to be the whole time. You only see most of him just being cantankerous and not really the resolution of who he becomes towards the end, which was kind of disappointing. I think I wanted more of that. And again, the ending was just really abrupt. Not gonna lie though, there were a few tears shed because it is pretty emotional and OOV goes through a lot. But I really thought the writing and the compelling storytelling was really strong. I think I know characters like that in real life who are just really cantankerous, but they're actually really genuinely good people. So I think I was able to look past that and was still interested in knowing more about OOV. So still really enjoyed. I rated it between 4 and 4.5 stars. I think that audiobook is especially excellent and I would strongly recommend. So I know everyone's already finished this book already, but this book literally took me 3 months to read. So that is going to be Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer. It is the retelling of Twilight from Edward's perspective. It was just really hard to plod through. It's a lot. It's a lot to be in some vampire, very emo vampire boy's head. I started this in September. It's taken me about 3 months to finish it. I just finished it at the end of October, early November. I don't want to say too much about it because I do have a Midnight Sun vlog that shares a lot more of my thoughts that will be coming out soon. I will say it wasn't bad. This was just a lot to be in an emo vampire boy's head. And I just struggled through the last 200 pages or so. And yeah, I rated it 2.5 stars. And I think I'm going to leave it there for now. If you want to know more thoughts, please stay tuned to my channel and subscribe. And I have a vlog coming out for Midnight Sun soon, so you can check out more thoughts about it then. Next, I read The Roommate by Rosie Danan. This I read as an audio. This is a contemporary romance about Clara and Josh, which was, Clara is described as like a socialite who comes from a privileged family, and Josh is a porn star. Literally, he is famous for his porn, which was kind of interesting. I thought that would be kind of a fun character dynamic to delve into. I didn't love it though as much as I thought I would, and it got a lot of hype on Bookstagram and BookTube, and it was just okay for me. I think the best things about it was very sex positive. There was a lot of things that Josh was all about, really empowering female sexuality and encouraging that in Clara, which I thought was a really great dynamic and very sweet. I thought there was a whole side story about the porn industry and everything involving that and how it can leave like not safe space for sex workers, which is definitely an important discussion to have. And I liked all those things kind of being brought into the romance. I think there was too many of those things that the romance got a little bit lost, which was a little bit disappointing because I still liked the characters. I like Josh a lot. I really enjoyed Josh. Clara was kind of annoying. I didn't really care for her very much. She just kept making really, really dumb decisions, and I didn't really enjoy her character very much. And I didn't necessarily see what Josh really saw in her. So something I always pay attention to when I read books is timing. So the plotting of time in a novel. That's just something I always pay attention to. And it doesn't necessarily need to be that the timing has to be obvious, but it doesn't have to confuse me. And I think the timing was all over the place. Like, they had their first sexual encounter within like a matter of like 2 days with this stranger that she's living with. It seemed really, really sudden for Clara and out of character for Clara, which kind of made me a little bit confused, as well as the fact that this is supposed to take place over a whole summer. That wasn't very communicated very well. It felt like there was matters of everything happened in a matter of days. And I just need some better movement through time in the novel for me to really understand the timeline of things. Timelines of things really matters to me in novels. So when it's not very clear or concise, I notice it in books. I rated it 3.5 stars. I initially had it as 4, and then considering it a little bit more after I had stepped away from it later in the month, I decided that no, I think it was really more of a 3.5, and I docked it down to 3. Docked it down to a 3-star. I had it originally as a 3.5, but a 4-star. I docked it down to a 3-star on my Goodreads. The next book I read was My Fake Rake by Eva Lee. This I read as an ebook, and this was about Sebastian and Grace. It's a historical romance. It's 80s inspired, mostly from movies and songs. This particular one is kind of like a fake dating trope, but also has a makeover, only the guy is made over, which I kind of love the gender swap of that. Gave me 16 Candles vibes, like if she had ended up with Ducky instead of whatever his name is. So that was kind of fun. Enjoyed that. Also, all not any of the more toxic elements of 16 Candles either, which I also appreciate. There was also a scene in the beginning about the Union of Rakes, which is what the series is about. It's about 5 different guys. And there was a total scene straight out of Breakfast Club with the 5 guys in detention. That was so, so great, and it made me really excited for the rest of the series. What I also loved about this was it's a friends to lovers trope, so they are really, really good friends. They're scholars. They go, like, hang out at meet at the library together and become really good friends. 2 lovers, which was just really, really sweet. I think there was something really great and genuine about the 2 of them coming together. The miscommunication, which is very common in friends to lovers trope, was a little bit silly. Went on for a little bit too long, but I understood why they did it for the plot. And I just love the characters so much, and they were so cute that I really didn't mind. And it didn't bother me that much because their chemistry and them getting together was still really, really adorable. I'm really excited about the rest of the series, and I rated it 4 stars. The next one I read was Deathless Divide by Justina Ireland. I read as an audio. It's the second book of the Dread Nation series. I read the first book last month, in October. And it is a alternative history of the Civil War breaking out into a zombie outbreak. I really liked the first book. I thought there was a lot of really interesting elements, and I was really looking forward to the second book. It was a little bit of a letdown. It is about Jane and Kate. Jane is mostly the main character in the first book, and then Kate actually gets her own narrative in the second book, which I really appreciated. The pacing was just really slow. It wasn't compelling as the first book. Like, the first book had a lot of really great layers about racism and the society and how Black people were being used to continue slavery by having them kill zombies, essentially. Like, they're the ones who are, like, in the front line of the zombie apocalypse. There was something really interesting things being said. And this second book just didn't have that. It had a lot more world building because you go into more states during this time period and how other states and how other areas are dealing with the zombie outbreak, which was interesting. I just feel like it didn't have a lot as much to say as the first book did. One of my favorite characters from the first book ended up being the villain for this second book. which was a little bit disappointing. I was a little bit sad about that. I do like how great the friendship between Jane and Kate is. I think that was built on in the first book, but in the second book it was really, really emphasized, and I really liked that. This was ended open-ended, but not with a cliffhanger like it did kind of more in the second, kind of more like it did in the first book. So there might be more in the series, I don't know, but I don't know if I would check them out after this installment. I rated it 3.5 stars. The next book I read was Flirting with the Frenemy by Pippa Grant. This I read as an ebook. This is on Kindle Unlimited. It was a contemporary romance. It's about Wyatt and Ellie. Wyatt is the brother's best friend. They've been childhood enemies to lovers. Ellie, they have a hookup one night. Wyatt says it's a mistake. Ellie freaks out and leaves, and then proceeds to immediately get into a car accident where she is injured and scarred and has to learn how to walk again. Like, it's really serious. And then it has this huge time jump several months later where they reconnect. The first beginning scene I thought was really great. And then the time jump just made me really feel disconnected from the characters. The conflict was really weak. The plotting was a little bit all over the place for me. She has a date set up for a wedding that she was going to, her best friend's wedding. She is a maid of honor for. She has this fake date set up. And then the brother's best friend, who happens just to be there, is assumed to be the boyfriend. So then she, like, changes her story and pretends he's the boyfriend for no reason, when the guy that she's supposed to be dating is standing right there. Like, I don't know why she was like, oh, and then she, like, freaked out and was like, oh, I have to pretend he's the boyfriend, even though I have this other guy that's standing right next to me that's also supposed to be pretending to be my boyfriend. It was very, I don't know, it was very unclear about why he got stuck in the fake dating role. I don't know. It was okay. It was cute. I liked Pippa Grant's other works, but this one wasn't my fave. I rated it 3 stars. The next book I read is an arc that I was super, super hyped for. That is, I read as an ebook, and it is Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. It is the last book in the Brown Sister series. I was super, super stoked. It was everything I wanted. It is about Eve and Jacob, a contemporary romance. They are an autistic hero and heroine. They're sunshine and grump trope. And all I wrote on my notes was adorbs, heart, heart, heart. Which I think just sums it up. Them coming together was so cute. Jacob is like this perfect grump with this sweet, sweet cinnamon roll center. And Eve is this strong, bold woman, as well as being really sweet and kind-hearted. I love the two of them coming together. 5 stars all across the board. It was so great. So good. I can't wait for it. It comes out March 9th for next year, 2021. I strongly recommend it. If you liked any of the Brown sisters, you will love this installment as well. Also, just anything for anything for autistic representation was also just really, really well done. So strongly recommend. Really, really great. Loved it. Oh, so much. The next book I read was A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallaro. This was an ebook. It's actually a reread. I've read it before, and I read it for my book club because it had been a few years since I read it the first time. This is the retelling of Sherlock Holmes and Watson. It is Charlotte Holmes and Jamie Watson. They are the descendants of the original duo. They meet at school, and Jamie is, I decided he's a cinnamon roll hero with anger issues, and Charlotte is an emo wonderkind who doesn't feel. And, it's just a good time. I liked it the first time. I rated it 5 stars. This time was no exception. It's just a really fun time. I like the chemistry between the 2 characters. The mystery, I'm not a big mystery fan, so the mystery was okay to me, but it's just a fun time. They just, go off on their adventure, and it's great, and I really enjoy it. And now that I reread the first book, I'm more motivated to go back and do the second one, and the third, and I think the fourth, and finish the series, which was kind of my reason for wanting to join the book club to read it. And it's more of a 4.5 stars, but I'm keeping it as a 5 star because I still kind of love it. The next book I read was Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. This is by Benjamin Elir Sans. Probably saying that wrong. I read this as an audiobook. This is about Ari and Dante. He is Aristotle, but he goes by Ari. So I knew that this was a queer romance, and I kind of wish I hadn't known it was a queer romance, because the romance really doesn't happen until the very, very end, which is fine. It's a lot more about identity. It's a lot more about Ari kind of discovering more about his relationship with his family and coming of age. They live in, I'm going to say El Paso, Texas. Ari and Dante are both Hispanic or Mexican. They consider themselves. The writing and storytelling was really compelling. I listened to the audiobook, and it was narrated by Lin-Manuel Miranda from Hamilton, Moana, all the things. So I really enjoyed hearing him narrate it. I think the ending was just really abrupt, and it took me back a little bit. And I just think I really wanted more of the romance side of things of this story. But I still really loved Ari and Dante's characters. I really still loved Ari's story and how he comes to realize who he is. And yeah, I still really, really enjoyed that side of it. I just wanted, if it was marketed as like a queer romance, I think I wanted it more described as coming of age, because that's really more an identity, which is really more what it was about. So I think maybe I had different expectations, which maybe would affect my rating a little bit. So I ended up rating it 4 stars. However, I still very, very much enjoyed this, and would definitely recommend for if anyone's interested in that kind of story. And then, because it's me and I felt like something smutty, this was my smutty part of my wrap up, is I read Go Deep by Rilzy Adams. I read as an ebook. It's available on Kindle Unlimited. This was a Black romance, a Black author. It was a steamy novella, so really short and sweet and sexy. Friends to Lovers. This was about Nevaeh and Xander. Nevaeh is an erotic romance writer. Xander is her absolute best friend. They've been childhood friends forever. She's in a little bit of a sexual slump, and her writing's getting affected. So she decided to strike up a deal with Xander to maybe hook up and get her writing mojo back. And of course, in doing so, feelings start to change. It was kind of like a really lovely evolution, because they already really, really loved each other as best friends, and then just adding kind of that sexual component totally made them look and view each other in a different way, where they still really loved each other as best friends, and now also started to love each other as lovers. So it was just kind of sweet and a little bit sexy and steamy. A lot of fun. 4 stars. Really enjoyed. The next book I read was The Prince of Midnight by Laura Kinsale. This was I also read for my book club. I didn't finish it in time for my book club, but I still went to book club and talked about it. And I'm glad I went back and still finished it. I read it as an ebook. This was about St. and Lee. This is an old school historical romance published back in the 90s. I haven't read it Laura Kinsale before. This was my first time. Lee is out for revenge, which I kind of was refreshing to see. Usually you don't see the female being out for revenge. Usually it's always the male characters. So a heroine being out for revenge is kind of fun. St is this big romantic with lots of feelings. So we get Lee, who's very stoic and just set on revenge, and has this really big trauma of losing her family. And St, who is like this big romantic and passionate and, has like this like ideals of things. So it was kind of fun to see how those two work things out. St also stands for something. That's his initials. He goes by initials. I'm not going to reveal his real name, because it's worth it for you to read it just to find out what it is. And it's a ridiculous name. The writing style was really different. I can't really describe it, but it was a very different writing style than I was used to. The romance was more understated. It was a lot more about like her getting revenge, and like the romance bits were kind of interwoven in between. I think I wanted a little bit more of the romance, or a little bit more like how it developed, because Lee kind of developed feelings, but you don't really get more moments of her realizing it as she goes through. I do have a trigger warning of a questionable consent sex scene in the very beginning. I think it was consensual, but it's a little bit sticky, so just go into forewarning of that. However, I will say I did like the fact that this read, even though it was an old school historical romance, I thought, and some of those time doesn't do very well, I thought actually time was more generous to this one than typical. So that was nice to see. It kind of held up more than I thought it would, which was kind of nice to see. And that was what my book club kind of agreed with. It was enjoyable. I really did end up liking it. The end scene really made up for a lot of kind of some of the other scenes that I didn't really care for. I rated it 4 to 4.5 stars. Probably more on the 4-star side, but still overall really, really enjoyed. And if you hadn't read this particular old school historical romance and want to give it a shot, then I would recommend. For November is going to be The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. That is, I read it on audio. That is a book that everyone has been reading and hyping and loving. This is a story about Addie. Addie makes a deal with the darkness / devil / God, however you want to think of him as, who names himself Luke. Addie makes a deal with Luke in exchange for her soul and her life to be able to gain her own freedom. It's got a romance to it, but I will say it's really more about Addie and her life, what it means to live, and what it means to live if no one remembers you, and what that looks like. I love V.E. Schwab's writing style. I think her writing is just so poetic and beautiful. This was no exception. I will say this book is very slow paced. It's long, or what I consider long. The audiobook was about 13 hours. And the book is very strongly character driven. There's really not a lot of plot. However, I still really, really enjoyed this. I will say it really started to pick up about halfway through when you meet Henry. Henry is a human that Addie meets, which I will not go into because it spoils things about what's going on with the two of them. I really, really enjoyed it. That the last hour, I could not stop listening to it. Last hour was just like, oh shit. So many things went down in that last hour of my audiobook that was like, oh damn, oh man. It was really, really good. Which I love a build up that ends really, really well. I've heard rumors that there apparently is going to be a sequel. I don't know for sure if that's the case or not. I'd be interested in a sequel if it does. But however, I don't necessarily need one because I feel like I know Addie anyway. Yeah, really, really enjoyed. Thought it was really, really good. Feel like there's a lot of people who are fantasy readers who say, oh, no, this is romance. And I feel like romance readers are like, no, this is fantasy. And I agree that it's more fantasy than a romance. Definitely. However, there is romantic elements. So if that's not your thing in a fantasy, then I wouldn't recommend it. However, if you like a little bit of both, then this has definitely got a little bit of both. 4.5 stars is what I rated it. Not quite 5. But 4.5 stars. Really, really enjoyed it. Oh no, I forgot one. I forgot one. I also read You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. How could I forget this one? This was a queer romance, YA contemporary. This is about Liz Leidy. She is all black girl magic all the time. I really, really enjoyed this one. Identity of family and the sweet queer romance. Liz is trying to get a scholarship for her to be able to go to college. She doesn't get a musician scholarship like she hoped, so she decides to go ahead and compete for prom queen to compete for the scholarship. And it's just really, really sweet. I will say trigger warnings for homophobia and racism, which was a little bit stronger in this book than I anticipated. But overall, it was just such a joyful read. And I still really enjoyed it, and it didn't detract from that. But just so you're aware that there is elements of that in this story. And the queer romance was really sweet and really adorable. It was 5 stars. It was just so cute. I can see why everyone really, really loved it. I've seen a lot of really great positive reviews in this, and this is no exception. I really, really enjoyed this story. In total, I have read 13 books this month. 2 of them were physical, 6 ebooks, and 5 audiobooks. 3 5 stars, 6 4 stars, 3 3 stars, and 1 2 star. So I feel like the beginning of my month I was kind of not loving, but the end of my month ended up pretty strong. So I'm pretty satisfied and happy about that. And that is it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you saw and want to see more from me, please subscribe and hit bells so you can make sure you see my videos pop up, as well as comment below what was your favorite November read. I'd really appreciate and love to know. If you'd like to follow me and see me on all the things, all my social medias are down below as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye!